Resource Director for the Lac Flammable Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians. I've been on the reservation since 1984, so February 2nd, 2014, I'll have 30 years into helping the tribe protect and conserve their resources for present and future generations. It's been a long ride, and it's been a good one, and a very good opportunity to be able to deal with the Lac Flammable tribal members, the tribal council, and the Lac community in general. I do have a staff person here from our water resource program, Gretchen Watkins, so if you want to stand up. And then I do want to acknowledge other Lac Flammable tribal members that are here, Melinda and Kelly. So I take the opportunity to say miigwech for giving me the opportunity to present what we do on the Lac Flammable Indian Reservation and try to protect our resources. Historically, the tribe was signatory to the 1837, 1842, and 1854 treaties. And through that whole process, the reservation was established. And at that particular time, our forefathers went ahead and reserved the right to hunt, fish, and gather within the ceded territories of Michigan, Minnesota, and of course, Wisconsin. We always say that the Lac Flammable Indian Reservation is surrounded by the state of Wisconsin rather than the Lac Flammable Indian Reservation is in the state of Wisconsin. So I always try to keep that in mind when you're dealing with at least the Lac Flammable Band of Lake Superior Chippewa Indians. What's important when we're talking about protecting the natural resources, in the same breath, you have to really basically say that we're protecting those cultural resources as well. And I'm not even sure that there's a split between the two. So a lot of times our codes and ordinances are and you have copies of some of them within your packet, that really dictates of what we do and how we do it. We do have a tribal government. We have a constitution, bylaws. We have 12-member council. 4 is what we call the executive board. We have a president, vice president, we have a treasurer, and we have a secretary. And then we have 8 tribal council members. And their responsibility is to, protect the health and welfare and the natural resources for the tribal membership, as well as anybody living within the boundaries of the reservation. The reservation is one of the most beautiful places in the world. And I'm sure that when you're dealing with all the tribal nations and within Wisconsin, they will tell you the same thing, that is their home, that is their place of origin, that's their everything. Okay? So keep that in mind when you're dealing with putting a road through the Lac Flammable Indian Reservation or any other tribal nation within the state of Wisconsin. The Constitution and bylaws basically, provides the basis for tribal government, and they do things like, passing codes and ordinances that protect the health and welfare and the natural resources of the tribe. And we have numerous codes, and I think you could go to our website as well and find out what those codes are. But another way we go ahead and protect those resources, cultural or natural, is that we have a tribal natural resource department, okay, and cultural resource department. Under one structure, when we were under a deputy administrator structure, all these programs were sort of all under one roof, in other words. But right now they're not. But some of those programs are fish culture, fisheries management, conservation law enforcement, wildlife, environmental protection, water, resource program, solid waste management, Brownsfield, wildlife, forestry, air, energy. I probably forgot a few, but These programs are basically designed to try to protect, conserve, and enhance resources for present and future generations of the Lac du Flambeau Indian Reservation. And the Lac du Flambeau Indian Reservation is 144 square miles. It's 12 miles by 12 miles. It's a perfect square, except for maybe a little bite up in the northwest quadrant of the res. We have 260 lakes, 71 miles of creeks, rivers, and streams, 24,000 acres of wetlands, 46,000 acres of forested land. We have 433 miles of shoreline. So if you put that in perspective, I was down in Madison yesterday. You could drive from Lac du Flambeau, Wisconsin to Madison, back to Lac du Flambeau, and down to Wausau. So that's how much shoreline we have on the res. Gretchen, help me out, we're 49% wet on the reservation, 24,000 acres of wetlands. So those resources and all the cultural resources that are associated with that reservation is what we call Waswaganim. That's what we as staff in Tribal Natural Resource Department, tribal government, tribal membership, you name it, we interplay in a lot of activities that are associated with hunting, fishing, gathering, recreating, providing clean air, water, and land for our tribal membership. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing at the Tribal Natural Resource Department and the tribal government and as a community as a whole. Each one of those departments that I talked about has a particular code or ordinance that they have to make sure that any activity that occurs within the reservation is in compliance with those codes and ordinances. So for example, if the Wisconsin Department of Transportation is coming into the reservation, and they're going to be doing a road construction project or a wetland bank or whatever you want to consider the activity, and it's not only the Department of Transportation, the tribal membership, tribal government, it doesn't really matter. We have what we call our green sheet process, which was what the old name is, but now it's called the land use application. And before the green sheet process, it was talk about the old technology, the new technology. Our green sheet process was a green sheet process. Had nothing to do with money, but it had a lot to do with paperwork. And it went from one program to another program. So we would look at a particular activity, and it would start off with our land management program, and they would send it over to the forestry program, and then the forestry program would send it over to water and sewer or planning or any one of those programs, and make sure that the activity that is occurring or proposed is in compliance with tribal codes and ordinances. Well, we got into electronic version of that now. So once the activity is applied for at our land management office, it electronically gets broadcasted or distributed to each one of the programs in order to be able to make find out if the road is going to be going through a culturally sensitive site, or if it's going to have an impact on a wetland, or is it going to have if the activity is going to be within 75 feet of the high water mark. It takes into consideration tribal management, forest management plans, sales, you name it. It basically a pretty comprehensive, quote unquote, maybe some people would consider it some kind of a zoning application of some sort. But this gives us an ability, and the tribal government the ability, to make sure that the activity that is occurring with all tribal codes and ordinances. And why is this important? We're one of the tribes, for example, that have federally approved water quality standards. I think there's 565 federally recognized tribes in the United States, and I think the last count that there's 35 or 36 the tribes that have federally recognized water quality standards. The importance that the tribal government is consistent with their codes and ordinances is if, for example, there's and Doug talked about it a little bit in terms of water quality standards, there's an activity within our watershed or above our watershed, say it's a mining activity, and we want to make sure that the water that might be coming onto our reservation is clean and it protects our users or our tribal membership, that they're in compliance with our water quality standards. So if a mining company comes up there and says, we're going to put a mine here, we're going to have to comply with tribal water quality standards because our water that is being discharged is going to be going through the reservation. We're going to have to comply with those, of course. So maybe a bad scenario is that if the tribe is not complying with their water quality standards, you know, a particular mining company might say, well, geez, you know, the tribe's not complying with, so why should we? So you know, I know that's sort of a perspective that you might not think about, but we have to make sure that anybody that's coming within the boundary reservation, including the Department of Transportation, is complying with our codes and ordinances in order for us to fight off any environmental threats that might be occurring off our reservation. So take that, you know, that's how we have to look at it. But the more important thing is that, you know, those codes and ordinances are supporting, protecting, conserving tribal resources. I don't care if they're cultural or natural resources for present and future generations. And that is what Wasawaganine is about. We're all about that. Without clean air, water, and land, we're not going to have a healthy human population. We're not going to have a healthy, you know, fish and wildlife population. So those codes and ordinances, the Natural Resource Program, the Tribal Constitution, the people are what we are as a community. That's what makes Wasawaganine. So when you're coming onto the reservation, you definitely need to take that into consideration. And we really appreciate that when you do. And if you don't, you know, you'll run into, you know, some adversarial or controversial kinds of situations. So with that, I know, I mean, you know, it's lunchtime. I haven't eaten lunch yet, or breakfast, or anything like that. So my stomach is sort of growling, but I know we have a lot of questions and answer time period coming up when it's 11:15. So I hope that sort of gives you a perspective on what's happening on the Lac-Du-Flamme Indian Reservation. So appreciate this opportunity. Come and visit us in Wasawaganine. You're always welcome. So thanks.